So let's continue in the Mishnah. Okay, what we said yesterday, we started yesterday the Mishnah where we spoke about the dispute, the machloket, in when two people framed somebody and they were caught in the act of framing, and they framed the guy. First case of the Mishnah was that they framed the guy regarding a monetary issue. And we said as a result of that, good morning, Jaime.
Good morning.
Good morning. So we spoke yesterday about if two people frame someone on a monetary issue, and they found to be zomim, they were framers. So we had two opinions in the Mishnah. The first opinion in the Mishnah was that the opinion of Rabbi Meir, that the framers have two punishments that they're going to be given. One punishment was they framed the guy regarding money, so they have to pay the amount of money they framed him. And the second thing, the second thing they're going to get punished for is for the violation of a lo saseh in the Torah. The Torah says don't bear false witness, and they violated that prohibition. And as many lo sasehs in the Torah, when the Torah says don't do something and you don't follow it and you violate it, many of them carry with it the penalty of lashes. For instance, this week's parasha talk about kosher food. The person eats pork, eats the kazayit and olive size of pork. He violates the prohibition of you're not allowed to eat pork, and he will get lashes. So same way, the Torah says, don't do this, don't eat pork, don't shave your beard with a razor, that carries with it lashes. So too, carries with it the violation of don't bear false witness, carries with it lashes. So that's the first opinion in the Mishnah. That's the opinion of Rabbi Meir. We'll just repeat. We'll read the language. We'll run through the language in the Mishnah again. A little review. Now we're starting the Mishnah. We're testifying about us. Everybody have it? Anybody have a question of finding it, or it's clear where it is? Everyone has the Mishnah. It's on the art scroll. What is it? 4A3, where it says Mishnah. We're testifying about a certain individual that he owes his friend 200 zuzim. We'll call it $200. And they were found to be framers, because two other witnesses say that how could you testify you were somewhere else? Lokim, they get lashes umishalmim, and they have to pay. And what's the reason? Shalo Hashem, the Shahamavian Ledei Makkos, the pasuk, the same pasuk that brings them to lashes is not the same pasuk Mevian Ledei Tashlumim. It's not the same pasuk that brings them to payments. Meaning there are two different psukim that are playing a role here. There's one pasuk where it says don't bear false witness. That pasuk comes with it lashes, like the general rule of violating a lo saseh in the Torah. When the Torah says don't do something and you don't listen, generally it carries lashes. Of course, there are exceptions to the rule. So that pasuk kicks in, and you violated that, it gets lashes. Also, another pasuk kicks in. The Torah says you do to framers what they wanted to do to the other person. They wanted to obligate him $200. So now the obligation, the financial compensation of $200 kicks in. So we have two different psukim that kick in and come to play. And that's the two punishments that has to be given out. That's the according to Rav Meir. However, the Chachamim say no. The Chachamim say he will get only one punishment. Kol HaMishalem, when there's a punishment of financial punishment, when there's a question of lashes, we don't give both. And the Gemara is going to bring a pasuk that they learn out. You will not give both, punishments for one, because really there was one violation. The violation was they bore a false witness. So kol mishalem ain't a looker. They're not, if you pay, and they're gonna have to pay because they learn out from Vasisem lo kasher zamam that you have to do to him what he wanted to do to the other person. So there's no question that the framers have that obligation, a financial obligation. So therefore, the general rule of lashes is not going to come to play over here for violating a los, violating when the Torah says don't do something, and therefore they are not going to get. They are not going to get lashes. But Meir says you get both. Right. The Chachamim hold you're not going to get two punishments for one violation, and therefore that's the opinion of what the Chachamim say. But Reb Meir says, "I have two different, even though it's one violation, but there's still two different sukkim that play a role, because there's a pasuk that says you do to someone what he did, what he wanted the other guy, Baruch haba." And then we good to see you, Nathan. And then there's another pasuk that says you on the general rule of violating a lo saseh in the Torah. If a person violates the lo saseh, they get lashes. But that's going to be we're going to have that right away. Then the Mishnah says another case. The first case was a case of financial and lashes. That was the case that we were talking about. Two possible punishments. And we say there's a dispute. Can you give them both for that one violation? Now we have a possibility of two sets of lashes. Would we give the guy two sets of lashes for one violation when it comes to Eidim Zomamim, framers? So here's a different case. And therefore, the Mishnah feels the rabbis are arguing in this case as well. Not that you should think that there's a difference if the punishment is a similar type of punishment, all lashes. So let's hear the case. What's the case? Case 2 in the Mishnah. Mi'idin anu. Remember, the word mi'idin has the word 8 in it. You recognize the shorish, the root 8. Mi'idin anu. We are testifying. Bi'ish ploni. Regarding a certain individual, Shuhu Chayiv Malkut. We are testifying about a certain individual that he's obligated lashes. That means these witnesses come to court and they say about Ruvain, they say we warned Ruvain not to violate certain prohibition of the Torah, and he didn't listen to us. We warned him, don't eat pork, don't wear shatnez, and he didn't listen. He knew he was warned. Intentionally he violated, because you don't get lashes for unintentionally violating something. There's no lashes for unintentionally. Lashes is a very serious, I mean, it's a lower level compared to capital punishment, but that we want the only time they get lashes, it has to be warned, and it's done intentionally. He knew he was told if you do this sin, you're going to get lashes, and he didn't listen. So if they say to him, so these two witnesses say, we were the guys that warned him about this, and he didn't listen, he didn't care. And he went ahead and he willingly violated this lo saseh. You know, in general, if you tell a guy to do a mitzvah and he doesn't listen, generally there's no lashes for such a thing. For being inactive, you tell a guy you have to put on tefillin today, and he says, no, I'm not listening, I'm not putting on tefillin. So there's a mitzvah saseh to put on tefillin. He did a sin. By not putting on tefillin, it's a sin. You have an obligation to put on tefillin. Like a person says the night of Pesach, he doesn't want to eat matzah the first night of Pesach. He has an obligation. You have to eat matzah the first night of Pesach. He doesn't want to. Outside of Israel, we eat it 2 days. We have to say it 2 days. So by being inactive, he didn't put on his tefillin. We don't get lashes for being inactive in general, because the type of sin you sinned by being inactive. Generally, lashes come from doing an action, being actively doing an act against God. Okay, so therefore, that's the case. The general case is when the witnesses want to obligate lashes, they said the guy intentionally violated the warning, and they intentionally violated what's written in the Torah. when the Torah says don't do a certain thing. But you know what happened? These guys were found to be framers. They framed the guy. They said he did this sin, and they had no ability to testify because they were somewhere else. They couldn't have seen this guy do the sin on that day. So now what do we do to those witnesses? We're going to give those witnesses lashes. They framed the guy. You wanted to cause that guy to get lashes, you're going to get it. You guys are going to get it. And we're going to give them lashes. Now the question is, are we going to give them 2 sets of lashes or 1 set of lashes? Now, why should we give them 2 sets? Because not only did they want to create the guy, not only they want them to get lashes, and based on the rule of do to them what they want to do to the other guy, we should give them lashes based on that rule. But then there's another thing that might kick in. There's a pasuk in the Torah that says, don't bear false witness. So that pasuk should kick in and say, give lashes for that violation. For that pasuk, for that punishment of lashes, we should give him 2 sets. Again, set number 1 is because they wanted to do to him what he wanted to do to the other guy. What did he want to do to the other guy? He wanted to obligate the guy lashes. So that pasuk should kick in and say, give him lashes. The same way, if that pasuk says, if you wanted to obligate money, we say the framers have to pay money. Now the framers wanted to obligate lashes, they have to do lashes. And then there's another pasuk that says, don't bear false witness. And they violated that. And the general rule is by violating a lo saseh, violating something the Torah says don't do, comes with the lashes. So there should be 2 punishments coming around over here. That is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. However, the Chachamim say, like they said before, we're not going to give 2 punishments for this one act of one real violation, because the violation that they really did was bearing false witness. So for bearing false witness, we can't give 2 punishments for that violation. Even though the Torah talks about 2 different types of punishments, sometimes the Torah, but those punishments apply in different situations. And therefore we're not, and you can have those punishments individually. You could have a guy get lashes sometimes. You could have a guy sometimes pay money. Well, we're not going to. And here we're not even going to give 2. We're not going to give 2 sets of lashes for the one, meaning they went against the Torah by bearing false witness. Now you want to kick in 2 different punishments for that bearing false witness. We're not going to, for that one bearing false witness, we're not going to kick in 2 punishments. That's the opinion of the Chachamim. Let's look in the language in the Mishnah inside. We're 4 lines from the bottom in the Hebrew text. Nathan, you have it in the English. Where are we in the English? On Dalet Amud Aleph. In the English, we are on the bottom paragraph. Okay, got it? On 4A3. Mi'idin anu, bi'ish ploni shu chayiv malkut arba'im. We're testifying about a certain individual that is obligated lashes, 40. It says 40 lashes, but really it's 30. It's up. I mean, to give the guy up to 40, up to 39. It's not 40, is just a round number. The lashes is 39. V'nimsu zomamim. And those witnesses who framed the guy regarding lashes, they wanted to obligate lashes. Lokim shmonim. They're going to get 80 lashes, meaning 78. They're going to get 2 sets of lashes for this. Why? So here the Mishnah spells out what the issues are. Mishum lo saneh b'reach eishoker. Because they violated Torah says don't testify against your friend if being a false witness. And they violated that. So a lo saseh, that comes with it, the general rule of lashes. And then, and in this specific case, there's a new thing the Torah, meaning the Torah throws the book and the Torah gives an additional punishment. The additional punishment is, if you're a framer, you're also going to have to get what you wanted to do to the other guy. The way Rameh understands the Torah when it comes to witnesses, framers, the Torah is very strict. The Torah has 2 punishments for the guy. Punishment number 1 It's the general punishment. Anybody violates the Torah says don't do something. You violate it, comes with the lashes. That's the normal, nothing unusual. Don't eat pork. Don't wear shatnez. Comes lashes. Don't bear false witness. They were a false witness. So what's the rule for a false witness? They should get lashes. But now there's an additional punishment, the Torah says. When a person frames somebody, not only are you going to get the normal punishment that comes for framing somebody, you're going to get another punishment. What's that other punishment? We're going to do to you whatever you wanted to do to the other guy, whatever that might be. You wanted to create lashes to the other guy, we're going to give you also lashes. You wanted to create money obligations, you wanted to say the guy owes $100, you're going to have to pay $100 also. There's two different punishments that the Torah is giving for a framer. How do you like that, Nick? Torah is being very strong and very tough. Jaime, right? The Torah is being very strong on the guy.
I think it's actually unjust because it's one crime, it's one act. Why two punishments for one act?
So perhaps because the Torah wants, because this, that we find in the Torah, Jaime, the concept that if a guy goes ahead and he steals, he did one act, and sometimes then we caught the guy stealing, and he didn't turn himself in. We have two witnesses that come forward and they say, you know what, this guy stole. There's something called kefel. Torah says he pays double. And the Torah says, if he went ahead and he stole, let's say, an ox, and he slaughtered it, or he was stole an ox, and not only did he steal it, he's doing business. He sold the ox.
Yeah, but that's monetary. Lashes aren't monetary.
Okay, it's true. But we find the concept that you can give a guy much more of a punishment for then what he did one act. Okay, you could say he stole and he sold it, but really the main problem that he did was he stole it. It happens to be he's doing business with it. So the Torah gives it such a serious punishment that he has to pay. If he stole the ox and he sold it, he has to pay four times. He has to pay 4 times the amount, right? He has to pay five times the amount. So we see the Torah was very strict. So now you're saying that's money, and lashes is something else. But perhaps we could just say the Torah wants to create. You see, there's an opinion that says Eidim Zomimim is a knas, is a fine, meaning it's not the normal thing. A guy attempted to go ahead and create a loss for somebody. Like we said yesterday, there was a verdict. He attempted to cause a loss. He never caused any loss. Nothing happened, right? It didn't happen yet. Just the mere fact that there was a verdict, the Torah says you got to be punished. You got to do to them what they wanted. So maybe we see it's a total different category for framing somebody. It's not the norm. Like a guy goes, what?
How wide did the punishments vary? Because I'm curious. That bearing false witness is one of the 10 commandments. It's Aseret HaDibrot. It's in the list with murder and adultery. What happens in the case of false witness for adultery? What happens in the case of false witness for murder? I'm thinking of the
right. All those guys will get killed if they frame a woman and they frame a man and they say you slept. We warned him and he slept with a married woman. They framed him. They're going to get killed because they wanted to cause death to him.
That's capital punishment.
Right, exactly. We're going to, with the witnesses, that the framers, if they framed the guy in a way that they wanted to cause the guy death, we're going to give them capital punishment. We're going to kill the witness.
To frame someone for murder and he would have been put to death. That's the same thing that's done to the framer. Exactly.
We're going to kill those framers. They wanted to kill that guy. They attempted to kill the guy. We're going to kill them. So we see the Torah is very, very strong on framers. So maybe that can address your issue. So therefore, it could be that they could have multiple punishments, multiple things for being framers. Yes, Nathan.
Rabbi.
Yes.
So we know we get the punishments, for example, for death for the framer. But when you get slashes, they're getting it also. But when you get a penalty, let's say they had to pay 200 shekel, who's getting the money? The court, the one that tried to frame.
The one they framed. The guy who they framed, he gets the money. They wanted to obligate him $1,000. He gets the money. That guy that they framed, the defendant, the original defendant, he gets $1,000. Yes. Severe punishment.
For the sake of
Protecting system. What? You're saying that that's like a para. That's the atonement.
No.
Okay, Dr. Navid wants to say, okay, we'll see more about that. Maybe that's he wants to say that's the proper atonement, perhaps he wants to say. Dr. Navid wants to say that you want to cause person wanted to cause such hurt to someone, so maybe the only way to really be atoned for it is to go ahead and get that, but we're giving him a double, Dr. Navid. Here we're giving, according to Rameya, the halacha doesn't follow Rameya. Allah is following way Jaime wanted to say, just give him one set of lashes, don't give him two set of lashes. But Rameya's understanding is that we're not just going to give them what they wanted to do to the other guy. We're going to give them what they wanted to the other guy, plus an additional set of lashes for the general violation of Alosa, of not following what the Torah says. Don't do this and you violated that. So it seems like it's even a stronger type of punishment. Now, so the Gemara says, now why did they get shmonim marks? Mishum lo sa'ana b'reyacha eight shaker, because the Torah says don't bear false witness. Umishum, and also we give him another pair of lashes. Vasitem lo kasher zamam. You do to them what they wanted to do to the other guys. Divrei Rameya. That's the word of Rameya. The Rameya says, in this situation, when the framers wanted to frame the guy to create an obligation of lashes, those witnesses will get lashes for the framing and for doing to them what they wanted to the other guy. And they're going to get another set of lashes for the general violation of the Torah says, don't bear false witness, like any other lo say in the Torah that comes with it lashes. Vasitem lo, you do to him kasher zamam, what they prepared, what they attempted to do to the other guy. Divrei Rameya, that's the word of Rameya. V'chachamim omrim, the abbreviation stands for v'chachamim omrim, the rabbis, which is generally, when you say chachamim, that's more the majority opinion, and the rule generally follows the majority, as the Torah says, achrei rabim latov. Torah says you go after the majority. V'chachamim omrim, ein lokim ela arba'im. In this situation, they're only going to get 40 lashes, one set of lashes. We're not going to give them two sets of lashes for framing this guy and wanting to create an obligation of lashes. They're going to just get the punishment of lashes, one set. That's the Mishnah. Now we turn the page, Mabruk, next page. Now the Gemara, the job of the Gemara is to analyze the Mishnah, to clarify, to give us understanding of the Mishnah. And that's what the Gemara is going to do right now. So we're on Dalet Amud. The Gemara says, Bishlom Rabbanan. I understand the opinion of the Rabbanan, the Chachamim. This is going back, let's say, on the first case, the second case, but the case of that we don't give him two punishments for this one violation, right? Let's go back to the more simple case, the first case of the Mishnah. The witnesses framed the guy on a money. They said he owes $200. That's what they came to say. He owes $200, and then they turned out to be framers. So the Chachamim say, what do? They just get one punishment, and they say the punishment is financial money. They pay the money. We're not going to give them lashes for this sin of testifying falsely. They're going to get whatever the money, the monetary payment that they want. They have to pay the guy, the defendant, as Yosef was asking before, the guy they framed, they got to pay the money to, and that's it. They don't get lashes. Now, what's the reason behind it? As Mr. Safdie said, the pasuk in the Torah. The pasuk says, when the Torah says, Kedei Risha'ato Ksiv. The pasuk says, when it talks about punishments in the Torah says that you give Rishato. It uses a single, his wickedness. It uses a single language. So the Gemara understands we give him one. The singular language, when it refers to punishing a person, indicates that we give him one punishment for a violation. And this not, we don't give two punishments. That's the language of Kedei Rishato, according to his wickedness. According to, we're gonna give him a specific punishment. One. Mishum Risha Achat Atam Mechayvo. You're gonna go ahead and give him one punishment. Ve'in Atam Mechayvo Mishum Shtei Rishayo. You're not gonna give him two punishments as for one sin. For one sin, there was one sin that was done. What was the sin? They bear false testimony. For this, have a great Shabbat. For this sin, good morning, Mr. Feldman. For this sin, we're going to give him only one punishment. Now, Ella Rameya, who says that we're going to give the guy two punishments for one sin. We're going to give him both the financial payment, and also we're going to give him the lashes if he framed the guy in a financial situation. We're going to give him both punishments. So the Gemara wants to know, my taima, what's the reason for Rameya? The pasuk seems to lend itself to use the singular language, which seems to lend itself that you should give one punishment, not two punishments for one violation. So where did he learn it from? Obviously, Rameya knew this pasuk, which seems to indicate a singular punishment, one punishment for an act. So where does he get this? Where is his source that he says, no, we got to give him two punishments? We're allowed to give a guy two punishments for one violation of the Torah. Where does he see this from? Where is his source? So the Gemara says, Ama Ula. Good morning, Mr. Shetrit. We are the fourth line from the page. Ama Ula. What we're learning about is the idea. There's an opinion of Rameya in the Gemara, in the Mishnah, that Rameya says we have a machloket in the Mishnah for one violation of the Torah. Is it possible? Could you give a guy two punishments for one violation, or you're only allowed to give one punishment per violation? Right, like we said yesterday, if a person gets a ticket speeding, so sometimes you sped, you get a ticket for speeding. But if you didn't have a seatbelt on, it's a separate violation. Ticket for speeding, but for not having a seatbelt, you can't give him two punishments. One punishment you give him, right? So that will be the similar idea to look at in our, for speeding, give him one punishment. Don't give him two different punishments for speeding. Reckless driving, it's one punishment. Not that we're going to give him, for doing this sin, you have to pay, and also you have to get lashes. You know what I'm saying? We're not. That's the issue here. So Rameya says, Ama Ula Gamame Moti Shema. Ula says Rameya found he has a source. What's the source? Moti Shema. What is the case of Moti Shema? A person gets married. He marries this woman. Okay, there are details exactly what the age and what the situation is. Let's say she's a 12-year-old girl, which is already considered an adult by Judaism. 12-year-old girl is obligated in mitzvot, right? And he gets married to her, and then the husband, what did I say? Between 12 and 12 and a half. Let's say the case of the Torah by Motzi Shemra. He goes ahead and he said, and the guy is not a nice guy, a terrible guy, terrible husband. And what does he do? He gets married and he wants to say about his wife that his wife wasn't faithful from the time he gave her the marriage band until they actually brought her into the house and had relations with her. In the old days, it was done differently than we do today. Today, the whole marriage happens by the chuppah. You give her the ring, you give her the marriage band, you say, Hariyam Mukudeshetli, you're married with me with this ring, in front of two witnesses. That's all done under the chuppah. Until they walk into the wedding hall, they're not married. They're engaged. Engaged is not married. And also people have to act that way as engaged and not married. It's another issue that people have to realize. They're engaged. The old days, it was different. The old days, they would actually give her the wedding ring. and not yet bring her into the house yet, and not do chuppah yet. Chuppah was months later. They would give her a ring. They would say, Hariyamu Kadeshitli, you're married to me with this ring. And she's married. Part one of marriage already happened. If they would want out, if he wants out, if they want out, they would have to have an actual get, a proper divorce. And let's say it would take 6 months or so for the woman, for the family to set up the house, and then they would have chuppah. And between the time she gave her the ring until they had the chuppah, they can't have relations with each other because it wasn't finished yet. You didn't have chuppah yet. But she's married. She's forbidden to any other man. It's like in a certain way, it's the way, you want to marry each other. You're not yet ready to move into the house yet. Takes time to set up a house. So this will make sure we're married. That she can't go anywhere else. But still, but now they can't have relations. And now we'll get married. We'll have the chuppah 6 months later. I'd say that was done in the old days. Now, obviously, you understand why today the rabbis most probably said it's not a good idea that the lady should be a married woman, and yet then she's married and they're in limbo. You're married, you're not married, because you're not in the house. So therefore, you understand, if she goes with another man between the time that she got that ring, then she's a married woman, and that's adultery. So the husband is a bad guy. The case of the Torah is the husband is a bad guy. Good morning. What does he say? He says, you know what? He did the chuppah, which, let's say, brought her into the house. The main chuppah, the idea of the chuppah is like the canopy is symbolic of a home, like you bring her into your home. And he has relation with her. And he says, you know what? Lo masati lebitcha betulim. He comes to court and he says, my wife wasn't faithful. She had relations with somebody. And he says, and he makes the claim that between the Kedushin, between the time he betrothed her, that he gave her a ring, and now he claims that she was with another man, and he badmouths her, calls we have to see the details of the case. Does he bring false witnesses? Also, whatever, we have to see the details. But he's Motzi Shemra. He gives her a bad name, and then they prove that it's not true. They prove that she was a Betula. They prove that she was, at the time that he brought her into the house and he had relations with her, that she was a Betula, that she was not had relations with anyone previously. So what do we do to such a husband? What did we do to such a husband, such a terrible person who framed his wife, right? Was probably, why did he frame his wife? Was probably he wanted out of the marriage in a way that he wouldn't have to pay the tuvah. Because if she was unfaithful, so he doesn't have any financial obligations to his wife. So he wanted, maybe that was and he also, it says he hated her. Because he had the sinat. When a person has hatred, let's say he wasn't happy. He wasn't a happy married guy. He thought he gets married after the first night, he's going to be up in the heavens and the stars, and he thinks, but it says, and he hates her, whatever the reason why he hates her. And look what hatred could lead to, that he wants to frame her, he wants to cause her death. So the Torah says he has to pay the father a fine.
100 checkouts.
Yeah, he wanted to make a bad, he knew it was fake, and he was just making a bad name for her. The Torah says 2 punishments are going to happen over here. He's going to pay the father of the girl a certain amount of money for disgracing the girl. And he's going to also get lashes. We're going to give him lashes for this. He's going to get it. 39 whippings for being such a bad person. That's what the Torah. What? In the court, it's a more public. I think it's a public type of thing. It's in the court.
When you treat the man the same way, like you really thought that she would have relations, but he didn't know for a fact, but he just had a temper, he just went with it.
And he made a bad name. Okay, so we have to see more of the details. I'm just giving, it's a good question. We have to see more details of this case, but the general, just to give you just a broad outlook of the case that has to be looked into, is that's the guy, he's Motzi Shemra. He caused a bad name. And the Torah says there's going to be 2 punishments. So Rameh says we see the precedent of 2 punishments. And there's something called a mamatzinu. one of the ways of the Torah does not spell out the law for every case of all different situations. What the Torah does, it gives you a law, and then you take that law and you apply it to other situations. We find this precedent over here, and then we could apply the precedent somewhere else. Now, many times you could say,
Rabbi,
yes,
American judicial system is based on that. It's case law, precedent.
exactly. But if you, just like in the American case law, you see, what is the job of the lawyers is to say it's not comparable. You want to bring me this case that you win the case, that you own the property and you have the rights, these rights. So the other lawyer is going to say, no, you can't compare that case to this case. What are they arguing about in the court? The whole argument in the court is it comparable or not comparable? That's mainly you bring in this case and I disagree with your proof. So that's similarly over here, similarly in the Torah, that if you want to bring this as a role model, as a case, so then but they have to be comparable. If let's say we find a phenomenon in some situation, but maybe that case is a more different type of case, a unique situation, so you can't compare something that's maybe unique or something different than something that's lighter, right? If you could say that there's a reason why that case should be different than other cases, so then you will not be able to apply the law that the decision in that case to this case. So that's what the Gemara. So Rameya's understanding is that we could compare the two. We could, yes. So if there's a problem that if there is an issue that yes.
One, the girl, they gave the father, and they gave
Lashes.
They hurt two people, hurt the father, hurt the girl. When he lied about a false witness and there was money that they had to pay, he only hurt one person.
Oh, very good. So Mr. Feldman is bringing up the following point. Maybe there should be a difference between Motzi Shemra, when you bad name somebody, where you were hurting two people, where you were hurting the woman, the girl, the wife, and you're hurting the father's reputation. But when a person goes ahead and he was framing an individual just about you owe him $200, so being that you're framing only hurting one person, maybe you should not get two punishments. Maybe the two punishments by the giving a bad name is because you hurt two different people. So that would be a good distinction if we feel that would be reason enough to make that distinction. Meaning we would have to, first of all, we don't know that the reason why there's two punishments from Motzi Shemra by giving a bad name is because you're hurting two different people. That is speculation. So maybe it could be that's not confirmed. That's not, so therefore we might not be able to use that as a difference. But if there's a clear difference that we know it's a factual difference, we can prove that's the difference. So that will create the difference, and we won't be able to learn one from the other. We'll continue on Monday. Have a great Shabbat, everybody. And on Sunday, we're going to have a phone conference related topic to the Gemara. I think we'll have it at 10 o'clock on Sunday. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you all for joining. We want to thank everybody that's come. Everybody that comes adds a lot to the class. Thank you so much. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Mr. Shetrit, it's always an honor to have you and everyone to join us. Mr. Feldman, thank you, and everybody. Be careful. You got to be careful. Yeah, no, sorry. It's like a little. You want to borrow something? Pen. Anyone have? I have a pen. What's that? Pen. Anybody have a pen?
This is from Albert.
Oh, sorry, this is the person. Shall fiscal mitzvot. To everybody. I need a favor from you guys. Anytime this is plugged in here, we gotta be careful people don't realize it. I don't want people to fall over. They give them a stone. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, where do you leave this?
So we'll leave it in here.
I'm sorry, like, if you don't plug it in, it'll die during the thing.
No, but if you charge it before, we won't have problems. The best way is always to charge it.
Charge
before.
it like maybe even now during Minyan, and
Right.
then before we leave,
Right,
unplug it so it'll be good for tomorrow.
right.
You shut it down or you just close it?
I like to shut it down.
Yes.
Okay, so now it's good, we're good to go, because I'm also leaving, I'm going to the college, help the guys.